Good morning everyone. We are coming to you live via YouTube streaming, via Facebook streaming, and also via Skype online. Each one of you is welcome to this live streaming. Going within. Sometimes it takes life and even more than life to go within. Although it is very simple and easy, I mentioned to you the difference between the way of Nagarjuna and that of Buddha. Zen monks have been meditating for the past 2500 years. What actually transmitted between Buddha and Mahakashyap. One fine morning, Buddha came Avanti Pindika for the sermon. The monks were waiting. Buddha came with a lotus flower in his hand. He kept on watching the flower and he sat down with the flower. This made the monks restless. Buddha never did something like that before. What is the purpose of having the flower in his hand and not saying anything? For you, unless something is spoken verbally, you cannot understand, you cannot decipher the silence. Because to you the silence means nagging, silence means disturbance. You do not understand the profundity of silence, the substantiality of silence, the qualities of the silence. All that happens precious happens in the moment of silence. Love blossoms. Love is born in a moment of silence. Love blossoms in a moment of silence. You can hold on to the hand of your beloved and can remain silent for hours. Nothing happens. Deep in silence the bliss flows. And when you are married, you are living together, words flow, silence disappears. And with silence also disappears the bliss. You come in the company of the Master. In the beginning, you are flowing into his silence. Things are different. Then you are looking for the words. The moment the association becomes a little stale, it starts beginning to grow between the Master and the disciple. If the disciple is not ready or is not aware, he starts taking things for granted. I never took my uncle, in whose company I lived, as my uncle, or try to establish a physical relation that he is my uncle, because my first and the foremost connection with him is that at the level of silence, the energy, the Master, the one who guidance I am for the spiritual development. So nothing of the physical or the day-to-day things should come into the limelight, should surface. And these things happen the moment you start living with someone or staying with someone, in the beginning for a few days things are different. Then you start taking the person for granted. The husband takes wife for granted, the wife takes husband for granted. The original thing that had happened during the moments of courtship vanishes. And then you complain, that time I used to feel the presence even from far away. Now I do not, because the moment two persons start living together, they start seeing one another, and that something which was beyond the known, from unknown you have entered into the known realm. You start seeing things which in unknown realm you cannot, and that's where the problem begins to come. So Buddhists are still waiting to want to know what had happened in that moment of silence between Mahakashyap and Buddha. But Mahakashyap understood the silence. He understood the penetrating silence. And for him it was a moment of clarity. That very moment was of utter thoroughness. He became one in that moment with Buddha. He became one with Buddha in that moment. And in that very moment, this very moment when Mahakashyap understood the thoroughness of the silence yours and mine's are not separate. The two bedrooms may look different because of the decor, but if you empty the two bedrooms, the inner space that is there remains same. There is no difference of the inner space between this room and that room. The two rooms look different because of the decor and the furniture that is there put in each room. And this very moment, when you understand, it was a moment of clarity, the moment of utter thoroughness. The two became one. Mahakashyap became one in that moment with Buddha. The drop has merged into the ocean. And this happening is indeed surrender. Not that you say that I have surrendered to you, I listen to every single word of you. If you have understood every single word of me, then the healing will happen. Even if half a word or half a line you have understood, the healing will happen. That is what surrender is. Not that what he was doing. Buddha was silent. Mahakashyap was silent. The silences met. The two silences dissolve into each other. Two silences cannot be separate from one another because a silence has no boundary. A silence is unbounded. It is simply open, open-ended, open from all sides. in that great assembly of monks on Avantipindika, that day there were two silences, Buddha and Mahakashyap. The others remain outside. Mahakashyap and Buddha met, and when they met, the two silence met. The meeting was expressed through the smile, because that was the greatest sermon that Buddha had ever given. Not saying a single thing, he had said all that could be said, and all that could not be said, that too he said in that moment of utter silence and a smile. How does this happen? I am a testimony to that. How did all I am happened? It was a continuous journey of lives. In this life, just as when you are visiting a city, you make your arrangements because of present day internet facilities, the communication facilities, you make arrangement where you will be staying, who will pick you up from the airport, and the places that you will be visiting. All these arrangements are made. But in case of spirituality, you need to have someone where you can continue your growth. You finish your school, you are entering the college, so you look into the college, where you can continue your studies. There are colleges with different gradings, the universities too. So you enter into that college where your studies can be continued. So Buddha, so in that situation, there was a mystic, Sufi Brij Mohan Lal, coming from Naqshbandi order of the masters, Naqshbandi order of the Sufis. He happened to be my family, my mother's father. There cannot be any better company or association. In the night I used to sleep with him every night, and he has instructed my mother to pick me up from his bed around 3 o'clock. After that I should not be allowed on his bed. It happened one fine morning in 1953. My mother fell asleep under the divine plan, and she forgot to pick me up from his bed. I remained, and he went into whatever intense meditation or these things he is supposed to do. That is the hour when the masters communicate, send broadcast, because that word you understand. That time the sound waves are easily converted into electromagnetic waves, and they are received by the unconscious minds. That time the people who are sleeping, they are easy to contact at that moment. And from 3 o'clock until 8 o'clock I remain unconscious. Nothing was said, nothing was asked, nothing was spoken, nothing was given. The two silences merged into one another. In that very moment, all that was needed for the spiritual development was transferred. But it needs, just as when you go and buy a computer, the computer man installs whatever you ask him and whatever he thinks he may need. He inquires about your profession and he installs the programs accordingly. So your system have all the programs installed and everything. Yet still you cannot operate the computer as efficiently as it needed. So you go to someone who knows about it and he shows you how to use the various applications and various programs on it. That function was performed by my uncle. So in his company, all that was installed at that age of 8 months, I learned how to use it. So at that moment, two silences merged, and in that very moment, everything was transferred. Between master and disciple, whatsoever happens in the moment of silence. But you want the words. When you have not met the person, you are trying to establish the connection, and that time sometimes you are touched by the silence, by the aura, which is a manifestation of silence. And the smile was indication that the two silences met. Buddha had never did something like this. All that could be spoken, Buddha had spoken. And that very moment, and all that could not be spoken, because truth cannot be spoken. Truth cannot be known through a particular tradition or system, be it this or that or any other system. No. Mahakashyap understood and smiled. In that laughter, Mahakashyap disappeared completely. This is what surrender is. He became a Buddha. The flame from the lamp of Buddha jumped. You have never seen the flame jumping from a lit candle to an unlit one. And unless that happens, the unlit candle cannot be lit. You have a candle lit in your hand, and you want to use that candle to light another candle which is unlit. You bring it close to the lit candle, but how close you have to bring it, you cannot determine. It is the lit and the unlit candle. You bring them closer, closer, still closer. It has to be understood between the two candles, the lit and unlit, how close they have to be in order for something to jump from the lit candle to the unlit. And that understanding is surrender. That understanding is silence. And something jumped from Buddha, and Mahakashyap was lit. This is called transmission beyond the scriptures, transmission beyond the known. And in Buddhist terminology, this is known as flower ceremony. It is unique in the history of human consciousness, and this is what is called Avyaktiropadesh. avyakt, that which was unmanifest, how it was communed, to express, to commune the unexpressible, unexpressed and unexpressible is Buddha's method, and it is known as avyaktiropadesh. The unspoken word, the unuttered words, silence becomes so substantial, so solid, so real, so existential, so tangible. In that very moment, Mahakashyap becomes a Buddha. Buddha was nothing. Mahakashyap also understood what is meant to be nothing, to be utterly empty. And that is where the transformation happened in Mahakashyap. This is the difference between the Shunya Veda of Nagarjuna and Avyaktiropadesh of Gautam Buddha. As such, there is no difference between the two. Nagarjuna was one of the disciples of Buddha and one of the penetrating intellects ever. Only few people, once in a while, a Socrates, a Shankar can be compared to Nagarjuna. He was such a penetrating intelligence. He was very, very intelligent and very penetrating. The uttermost that the intellect can do is to commit suicide. The greatest thing, the greatest crescendo that can come to intellect is to go beyond. When I say suicide, it is going beyond. And that is what Nagarjuna has done. He has passed through the realms of intellect and beyond. The logical positivists say that nothing is merely an abstraction. In the various instances of negative assertions, for example, saying this is not sweet, I am not healthy, I am not there, he did not like me, etc. Negative have no substance of its own. This is what the logical positivists say. Buddha does not agree with it. Nagarjuna does not agree. Martin Heidegger, one of the most penetrating intellect of the modern age, does not agree either. But that's where the difference comes in. Martin Heidegger says, he was of German origin, says that there is an actual experience of nothing. It is not just something created by language. There is an actual experience of nothing. It is inseparably bound with the being. The experience that he attests to it is that of the different quality. Nothing is an actual experience. Either you can experience it in deep meditation or when death comes in. Death and meditation are not two things. If you dissolve into somebody in deep love, you can experience a kind of nothingness. That is why people are afraid of love. They go only so far, not to the extent. That is why only a few people remain orgasmic, because orgasm gives you an experience of deep nothingness. Meditation gives you an experience of orgasmic existence, orgasmic presence. You disappear. Orgasm means a state when you disappear completely, physically, emotionally, mentally. In every state you disappear. You melt into something you do not know what it is. You go into an indefinable realm, avyaktirit means that which cannot be expressed. You go beyond the social. You go into some unity where separation is no longer valid, where ego does not exist. This state is frightening because it is death-like. So it is an experience, either in love, which people have learned to avoid categorically. So many people go on hankering for love. They go on destroying all possibilities for it because of the fear of nothingness, or in deep meditation when thoughts begin to cease, when thoughts begin to stop. You simply see there is nothing inside, but that nothing has a presence. It is not simply the absence of thoughts. It is the presence of something unknown, mysterious, something very huge. Or you can experience it in death if you are alert. People ordinarily die in a state of unconsciousness because of the fear of nothing. They become unconscious. And if you die consciously, and you can die consciously only if you accept the phenomena of death. And for that one has to learn the whole life and prepare for it. One has to love to be ready to die. One has to meditate to be ready to die. Only a man who has loved and meditated deeply will be able to die consciously. And once you die consciously, then there is no need for you to come back, because you have learned the lesson of life. Then you disappear into the whole, just as the drop merges in the ocean and disappears. That is, that disappearance, that dissolution of the drop in the ocean is nirvana. Logical positivists look at everything very logical, and in that process they miss something, because reality is, the truth is more than logic. In ordinary experience, we come only to that, you become only to the point where they say, this chair is here, this will be removed. Then you say, there is no chair there. It simply explains the state of absence. The chair that was there once has been removed. These are the ordinary instances that we know of nothing. There was once a house, and then it was dismantled, it is no longer there, it is absence. But but nothingness is much more deeper than that. It is much more deeper than what you have known. Nothingness is not absence as logical positivists say. A chair was there once, it has been removed, it is no more there, it is absent. This is not nothingness. We'll continue on the state of nothingness as prelude to silence in the process of the inward journey. Until then, take care and do have a pleasant day.